to conduct an interview. Okay. All right. So before we start, I want you guys to know that I feel like I have the ability to talk about the subject because I don't ever toot my own horn, but I'm just going to say I'm the #1 recruiter in our entire national area. Okay. It's a big deal. Woo! It's a big deal. It's a big deal. Yeah. So you have a really good trainer, so you should listen to everything I say. Okay. So what we're going to do, we've already talked about how to set up an interview and who to look for. Okay. So I'm going to kind of talk a tiny bit about that. But really that was a whole nother video session. So this is more about like what to do during the interview. So let's see. Okay. So here's the one thing that I will say about the who to pick thing is #1, you want to pick women that you actually want to work with. Okay. You don't need people to be on your team. Okay. You want people to be on your team. There's a very big difference there. Whenever you're going for like a goal, like if you decide that you want to move like into Red Jacket or earn a car or go into sales directorship, you might think for a second that you're in need mode. And so you start to recruit anyone who has a social security number. Sometimes you don't even care if they have all their teeth. You know, I'm just saying, okay, like you are recruiting, you are the CEO of your company. And so you are looking for people that you want to build your organization with. Okay. So that is just something to be mindful of. Let's see. Okay. So these are some of the things that I look for when I'm at a party and I'm setting up the interviews. And I know Corey already talked about this, but it's worth repeating. I look for women who are joyful. Like they already love their life. Like they're not miserable in their life. They could be unhappy, but typically here's something that Sean Key taught us, and I love this. And if I could give you any advice and save you from any pain, this is brilliant. He said that if you sit down with a woman and she leads with her sad story, that should be a red flag. No woman is going to lead with her sad story if it's the first time that she's met you, typically. Like we all have a sad story. We all have things that have happened to our lives that we might feel maybe victimized by, but like I'm not going to sit down with a woman I've never met before and share all that with her the first time that I met with her. So that's kind of like a red flag. So I look for people who are joyful, successful, driven, faith-filled, encouraging, humble. They have good communication. They're energetic, passionate, and they have a strong work ethic. Or I see signs of that, okay? Sometimes we're meeting these women at a party. They've worked all week. They're tired. They might have a couple kids. You know, we don't know what their life circumstances is, but you know what I mean? You can tell a joyful woman as opposed to a wah-wah kind of girl, okay? I'll say this too, like how they run their life is how they'll run their business, okay? Now, I believe that once you come into Mary Kay, you can be taught some serious skills. Like the woman that I am today is not the woman that I was 13 years ago. So I'm glad that my girlfriend didn't like prejudge the icky parts of my life, that she saw the strengths in me. And that's why she recruited me. But I do still to this day run my business the way that I run my life. So some would look at it and be like, wow, that's like a little crazy and a little chaotic and a little disorganized. But you know what? I stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning and I get the job done. I never quit a job until it's done. That is the way I run my life. I might procrastinate, but the job gets done. And that is the way that I typically will run. You'll see me running my business. Like I will get the job done no matter what it takes. So like their strengths and their qualities feed in, as do the things that aren't going so well in life. They run their business like they run their life. Okay. So I'm going to tell you about my first interviews, okay, that I did as a Mary Kay consultant. Okay, so my director was Julia, and she was in Lexington, and then I had a recruiter who was up here. And so my first 2 interviews that I did were on the phone. It was a conference call with Julia, okay, and one of them signed and then never did anything with it. Never did anything with it. And then the other one was like totally not interested. And those were my practice interviews. Right? That was it. Then I started doing my interviews on my own. So there is a correlation to jumping in and learning how to do something and being successful as at team building. So my first interview by myself was my cousin, and it was really like, I need to practice on somebody, so you're it. And so she was like, okay, and I'm like, just listen to this audio, meet with me, we'll talk about it. She wouldn't even meet with me. She would only talk to me over the phone. And so I snuck out on my lunch break, and I was like in the corner, like at one of the like restaurants downtown, and I was like doing this interview. So I went through everything, and in the end, I gave her the number scale, like 1, you're totally not interested, 10, you totally want to do it. She's like, yeah, I'm like a 2, I'm totally not interested. And I'm like, okay, thanks, bye, you're awesome. And that was it. Like, I didn't ask her what would it take to maybe, I didn't ask any of those questions. But you know what? Well, I'll come back to that. Remind me later about my cousin. So that kind of was like kind of defeating, but I felt good that like I did it. So my next party there were 3 women at that party that were interested and that joined my team. Okay. So these are my very first parties in the business. I'm not waiting to figure it out until I feel like I know what I'm doing. Like I started doing interviews, like even though I was so fearful, I started doing them like right away. But I'll say this, I built my entire DIQ team on friends and women that I felt comfortable leading. And you have to think back to where I was at that point. I was 23 years old. I was newly married, and I was about it. I really hadn't figured out much of life. Like I was pretty young. So for a 23-year-old, who would I feel comfortable leading? It was typically women of my age or younger. And so I built my entire DIQ team on 20-year-olds. And one woman, God totally gifted me, and she's still with me today, and she's like not 20. But so I built my whole entire DIQ team on those women. And I had a lot of fear. Every time I asked someone to do an interview, or every time I sat down at the individual consultation, I was scared to death. But the key was that I did it anyway. I just used the verbiage that I was given in my script, and I did it anyway. And I shudder to think that had I not been brave enough in those moments, like I would have missed my entire DIQ team. Like my entire DIQ team would have been missed had I not started asking people at those initial, appointments. So when I became a sales director, it got really clear to me, like, oh, I maybe need to ask some women that intimidate me. Okay. And so I don't know where I actually want to go with this, because it's all written out and it flowed when I wrote it down. So, okay. So with that, like, you need to have enough confidence, enough boldness. You don't even have to have any confidence. You have to have no confidence. Mm-hmm. You have to have enough like boldness and courage to ask, because then once you ask, you're in, right? It's going to happen. But I knew that I needed to up my game with who I was asking. And so my neighbor actually had me a party, and she was like mid-40s. So she had me a party. I booked a party off of that. And at that party, there was this woman there, and she was gorgeous. She was in her 40s. Her makeup was absolutely beautiful. She was a manager at a bank. Her husband had a great job. Like, her life was like what anyone would look in and appear. It was pretty put together. It was pretty perfect. And I remember, because she was so fun and she was so energetic and she loved makeup, at the end, I'm like, I have to ask her. And I was shaking in my heels. I was shaking. But I asked her, and she ended up joining my team. We did an interview. She joined my team. She came in as a star consultant, and she's still a part of my unit today. She orders every 3 months religiously, anywhere from $300 to $500. You guys, like, had I not been bold enough to ask her, oh my gosh, what would I have missed out on? Like crazy stuff that we miss out on. Okay, so here is what is critical, I think, about that initial boldness in setting these interviews up is, if I wouldn't have asked her, I probably wouldn't ask the next one, and I probably wouldn't have asked the next one. That asking her and her saying yes completely helped me build my courage. It taught me that, confident, put together, sharp women have a need for Mary Kay. That one person taught me that. And I also learned this. No matter how put together someone appears, she might have a need that Mary Kay could fill. We are not allowed to assume when we're setting these interviews up. We are not allowed to assume that they're not interested, because we have just cheated them out of the ability to have the opportunity. Okay, so even the ladies who tell us they're not interested, like, I'm not interested. Okay, so should we not ask them? Like, if I look at, Julia, Leah, Blythe, myself, like some top performers in our area, we were not interested in the beginning. I think 90% of the women that are on my team were not interested. And this is important with the interview, because women will try to cancel on you after you set up the interview because they're thoughtful, not because they are mean and don't want to meet with you. It's because they're actually thoughtful and they care about your time. People always say, I'm not interested. I just don't want to waste your time. They're thoughtful. Like, think of that. Oh, you're so thoughtful. Thank you so much for being so thoughtful. But actually, like, I know you're not interested and it's totally fine. I just need your opinion. And I'm looking for opinion of women like you. So can we still get together? You can totally tell me no. I just want your opinion. Oh, okay. You say that to them when you set up the interview, but then they'll still try to cancel on you if they're not interested, because they're being thoughtful. Like, they don't want to waste their time and they don't want to waste your time. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, thanks for being so thoughtful. Okay. All right. So the actual interview, I have always used an interview binder, and I'm going to share it with you. It's this binder. It can be whatever, but it's a binder. And I'm going to go through it and show you guys too. And this is on the website. You guys can find that under ambernichols.com under team building. It's a PDF that you can print and use. Once you feel like you're like ready to rock, and we've maybe done a couple practice ones together, then you can get the publisher file and you can make it cute and yours and have pictures. During the interview, you take notes, like actually like take notes. It's not weird. You actually want to take it serious, and you want to, if you're getting someone's opinion, then you would typically write down what their opinion was. And so you take notes. You can have them, or you can like be filling out like the choices survey thing or something. You can follow a guideline, or you can just be taking notes. I just take notes because I'm always following my interview binder. You want to do less talking than she does during the interview. And even though, yes, we have to share about us and about the company and the facts, you still want to be conscious of the fact that you want her to be talking more than you. The deeper that you dig with her through the vehicle of questions, the better. Like, think of like awesome conversations that you have with people, or people that you actually enjoy talking to. They typically ask a lot about you. How's the kids? How's the job? How's it going? Oh my gosh, how, like like those people that you're like, oh, like my uncle, he was so like, whenever he would come home, because he lived up in Washington, D.C., he would come home and he would just like love on us kids. And he was like, how's it going? How's school? How's sports? Who's the boyfriend? He was just so into us. And like, I would leave those conversations almost feeling guilty, like I didn't learn anything new about him, but that conversation meant so much to me because he was always asking about me. And so, ask a lot of questions. I am someone who, and I've learned this about myself, is typically I don't like people to go deep with me. I don't like to feel vulnerable. And so there's an art of going deep with people and getting to the heart and getting to the real reason that this might be good for them without being too penetrating. Does that make sense? Like, not being, you can't be pushy. You can't be weird. You can't be scary K. Like, you have to be really like completely into them, genuinely caring about that person. And so the number one reason that I will set up interviews with people is to build a stronger relationship with them. Two things there's a couple different things that are going to come out of the interview. Number one, she'll join your team. That's like the one thing that could happen. The other thing that could happen is she doesn't join your team. Okay. I personally feel like you have like a 1 in 3 shot of her joining your team. The other 2 are probably not going to be. Face-to-face interviews, 1 in 3 women will join your team. Over the phone, it's 1 in 5, 1 in 6 will join your team. It makes more sense to get in front of people and do these interviews face to face. But they will either join your team or they won't. If they don't, if you're building a relationship with this woman, the whole goal is to take her to the next place. You're building a relationship. You want her to remain a customer. You don't want her to feel weird if she says no to you. And so no matter what, when I end an interview and they're like, it's very obvious that they don't need more think time or more information, they're just not interested, I like just dive in with appreciation. And I'm like, listen, I want to thank you so much for taking your time to give me your opinion today. It means the world to me. I'm going to send you a little goodie in the mail, like just kind of some customer goodies, because you're definitely going to stay my customer. And then I invite her to the next thing as like a model or a guest. Because I want to stay in her life. The other thing that I do is I shake on it and I say, this isn't for you right now. And I totally get that. And I like totally respect you meeting with me and taking your time. But can we just shake on the fact that if Mary Kay ever is for you, like if life changes in the future and you think about it again, or it's reintroduced to you again, the opportunity, can we just shake on the fact that you'll be a part of my team? And literally, they're like, oh yeah. I'm like, let's really shake on it. And we like shake on it because, it's important that you stay in communication with her after that. But here's what happens is, a year later, 2 years later, something happens in her life. She's invited to some party with somebody that the opportunity's reintroduced and she's on their team. And then we're like, oh, that's stupid. Like, that's not fair. I facialed her. Okay, so here's the things that have to happen in between the interview and those 2 years. Number one, keep her as your customer. Love on her like crazy. Build a relationship with her. Take her to the next level as a customer. And so when she goes to that party, she can say, yeah, I'm here, but my girl is Amber. Like, that is my consultant. Like, you want people to know you enough that when people say, who's your consultant, that they actually can say your name. Not, oh, she's cute, she has those kids, I don't know her name. So you put your name on everything. Like if you text her in your emails, make sure that she's getting a catalog from you. That is the number one thing that I ask people. If I meet with someone and they're like, yeah, I had a consultant, what was her name? Oh gosh, do you get a catalog? No, never gotten a catalog. She doesn't have a consultant. And Mary Kay would back me on saying that. If you're not providing customer service, and I know that there's different ways to get the catalog to people. Like you can text it to them. You can be green. I'm sorry. There's something about sending that physical catalog, making sure, or she might say like, no, I don't get the catalog, but I get an email from her. That's different. She's being serviced. But there is something beautiful about getting physical mail. Think about how much mail we don't get anymore. I don't know if you guys ever noticed, like the junk mail. I mean, I used to fill my parents' mailbox. Like when we had our old house, I was like always getting mail. I don't get mail from many people. People are always advertising online, emails, texts, like blah. So when I get a magazine, like I still love to get like Pottery Barn Kids magazine. I might not buy anything, but I love to get it and I love to look at it. And when I'm looking for something for furniture or quilts, that is the place that I go because I feel like they service me. So anyway, okay. So when you sit down at the interview, I follow this interview binder. And I know you guys have all seen it. If you've ever done a face-to-face interview with me, it's this. I used to say, this is not true. I used to say, if you can flip and read, you can do an interview. Well, that's kind of a lie because you also need to listen and you also need to like communicate back with people. But I see like you can flip and read. But that gave me comfort when I first started doing them. I'm like, okay, I can flip and I can read. I can do this. Because honestly, I really didn't think that I was going to hold any good conversations with people. I was really nervous. So this is Pam Shaw had it and I took it and changed it over the years. So it originally came from her, but everything that's in here is in here for a reason. Okay. And so the first page is just a picture of some quality Mary Kay chicas. There's nobody with like big hair and blue eyeshadow on here. It's like cool people. And so that's important. I think that I talk about the different, I'm like, these are my Mary Kay girlfriends. And so you can have a picture of, your Mary Kay girlfriends and be like, these are my Mary Kay girlfriends. And this is who I get to do life with. And they're like real people and educated women and blah, blah, blah. And then the next page is just, you guys, it's not backwards, by the way. I know, like on the screen, I thought it was, but it's not. Tell me about you. Okay, so this is the first question. So I'll say, we're going to do 5 things today. You're going to tell me a little bit about you. I'm going to tell you a little bit about me. I'm going to share some company facts with you. If you're interested in the opportunity, awesome. No big deal. Your job is just to ask me as many questions as you can come up with and give me as many thoughts and opinions that you have. Okay, cool. All right. So tell me about you. So that's the first question, and how she answers that question will typically tell you her personality style. And you guys have learned about this with the DISC personality styles. If you're new, you're going to learn about that. But like a D personality style will typically answer very direct back. Like she'll tell you what you asked. She'll be like, well, she may start with like her family first. She may start with her career and education first, but she's going to shoot you back straight. Well, I've been married for 15 years. We have this many kids. This is what I do. This is my job. A C personality style will typically say, well, what do you want to know? Like they want to know what you need to know before they tell you what they think you might want to know. An S personality style is just typically soft, typically very loving. They'll typically tell you about their family first, or maybe charities. They'll tell you how long they've been at their job, like they're super loyal. And then I personalities will just get really excited to tell you about themselves. Like they're just like, oh, okay, so, well, what do you want to know? They might even say, what do you want to know? But they'll be like, excited to tell you about them. And they'll typically talk for a little bit. And that's good. They have energy. They're excited. They're the ones that kind of make you feel comfortable because they're like excited to be there. Okay. So I let them tell me all about them. And I typically will ask more questions. Like I dig here. And this is important. Like you should dig here. Like, okay, so, well, I've been at my job for, blah, 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 blah. My husband and I have been married. I'm like, how did you guys meet? Like, I want to know about her. I want to leave. If I leave with nothing else, I want to know who she is. And so I'll dig a little bit. And then I'll say, because typically they've just met me at a party, and so they've kind of heard about me. So I'll say, I know I just talked about me the other night, and, I've been building my business, but what would you want to know about me? Is there anything you want to know about me? And they'll ask you stuff. It's kind of crazy what they come up with, but they'll ask you stuff, and I think I've been able to answer everything that people have asked me. And then I kind of show pictures, like when I talk about me, I'll say this is me before I started, and this is me like a year before I started. This is what I look like, and that was me just with lipstick on. So whatever you are before Mary Kay, you can have a picture of your family here or whatever. And the next page is just a bunch of questions that I ask them, and it's typically the tell me about yourself is on there, but what do you like most about what you do? Do you have the flexibility that you want? Every single question on here has a purpose. Okay, I don't skip any of them. Do you have the flexibility that you want? And sometimes people are like, oh yeah, totally, I have a week's vacation. And I'm like, that's awesome. I'm like, oh, so what if the kids are sick, and can you just leave? Because some bosses are cool with that, and they're like, no. Or sometimes they're like, yeah. So I get to know their work situation. Do you feel appreciated when you do a good job? You're finding out if they have some love going on at work. Is there anything that you could do to change your financial situation? That's a really personal question. And in the beginning, I was like, so I kind of made a joke to ask it. So I always say, if the furnace blew up, do you have what it takes to just take care of it and not worry about it? Because it gets people thinking, oh, do I have savings? Do I? No, we're living paycheck to paycheck, but sometimes people do, and that's okay too. That doesn't mean they're not going to be interested. It just means they're smart and they have a nest egg. Let's see, if you could change one thing about your current situation, and I always say it doesn't have to be job related. What would it be? And that is the question that you have to remember at the end. When you're closing, you have to remember, what is it that she wanted to change? Because usually it matches up with her core values. I would love to have more time with the family. When she answers this question, if you could change one thing about your current situation, gosh, I would love to take the stress off of my husband. He works 2 jobs. I would really love for him to not have to do that. So and then I ask again, I dig here. Well, what would that do for you guys if he didn't have to work 2 jobs? gosh, like he wouldn't be stressed. We probably wouldn't fight like we do. So what would that do for you guys? Like maybe not as much fighting. Oh my gosh, like our kids would be happier. Like you go deep with her without being weird. Okay, if that makes sense. And you'll know if you'll know before you've gone too far. You'll be able to read her, like if you're face to face with her. It's hard to do that on the telephone. Let's see. This is important. What do you think your husband or your family would say if you said, "I'm going to sell Mary Kay"? And the reason that you asked that question is legitimately you want to know, but that means the way she answers that, she's already either talked to him or she hasn't even mentioned it. So a lot of times you'll find out who's interested at that question because they'll say, well, I kind of mentioned it and he was like, what? Or I think he's on board. We kind of talked about it the other night. Or she'll say, I don't know what he'll say. That means she hasn't really talked to him about it. So I just kind of read things there. What do you value most in your life right now? The majority of people say family. I typically dig, what do you like to do with your family right now? Like I always try to go a little bit deeper. And then what do you see yourself doing in 5 years? And based on the ages that she told me her children were, or like if she's in college or whatever, I tell her at that point, like you'll be this old. Your kids will be like 10 and 12. They're like, oh. It's like a thinking question, like what will I be doing? Because we always like to say we have a 5-year plan, but most people do not have a 5-year plan. Like 5-year plan ended at, I don't even know. Before Mary Kay, I don't even know. I didn't have a 5-year plan. Okay. And then I just talk about like, okay, so when I came in, here were some of Mary Kay goals, or like you might be new and be like, these are my goals and this is what I'm working on. And thanks for being a part of this. Like you just giving your opinion, but it kind of shows them that like we have goals. Like people get excited about like hearing about other people's goals because again, it may have been a long time since they've kind of thought about that for themselves. Talk a little bit about the company, just like when it was started and some facts. Talk about like international headquarters. This appeals to people who are D personality styles and they want to know if the company is legit. And C's. Talk about seminar. So before I, had a lot of tons of pictures of seminar, it was like a picture of the arena and blah, blah, blah. But now I have seminar pictures. So this one is, you'll spend a lot of time on this page. This is why people come into Mary Kay. And I say, I'm going to list through these really quickly. I want like at the end for you to tell me which ones appeal to you the most. And I just kind of go through them quickly. But because I've probably just been with them like at a party or something, and they've also listened to the CD. So I talk about like short, like money and make half of what you sell. There's like save money, there's like big girl money, and there's everything in between. I talk about each one, like I have a power statement for each thing. Gearing this towards who I've gathered she is, the things that I can tell motivate her, interest her. Like if, for instance, she is a D personality style and she's direct to the point, career driven, I am not going to talk a ton about prizes and current, like I will not mention the tiara. She's even spotted it on the picture before and she's already like, what? But I would talk about, like what are some things that your boss does to appreciate you? Whatever. And I'll give her a couple examples of things that I feel like she might be kind of excited about. So I won't spend a ton of time. So I'm really gearing this towards who she is, who she's kind of told me she is, but I'm also still at this point still learning kind of about her. And then which ones appeal to you the most? And when they tell me which ones appeal to them the most, that's where I find out if anything were going to excite her about this, it would be those things. And I tell you what, you will be shocked at some of the things that people say. Like you'll have be sitting down with like the most confident woman. You thought she was the most confident woman. She's like, I would really love to be able to improve my self-confidence. And you're like, what? But like, that's the whole point is like, we don't know what's inside people's heads. We don't know what their needs are and what their desires are. And then I go through like the avenues of income and just talk about how much money we can make. And literally this is where, if you can flip and read, you can do the interview. I talk about like the selling advantages, no quotas, no territories. I do talk about the only thing you have to do is once a year, do a 225 order. It's important that you know your discount is only good for 3 months. Like, you please have to promise me that you tell people that, no matter how.
What do we have to tell? What we have to say?
The 3 months. Like, your discount goes away. You know, it's every 3 months. So I always, the way that I say it is, if you are, if you're going to have a customer base, then you're probably going to want to order at least once every 3 months so that you're always active. That's what I say. And then the tax benefits and deductions, more income potential. I show a picture of Pam and Julia and their highest commission checks. And awards and prizes, kind of show them, like, these are my babies, my cars. And then this is like, that's it. So you spend a lot of time getting to know them, talking to them, and then like, these are why people come into Mary Kay, and then it's like blah, 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 blah. And then, okay, so what questions would you have at this point? And she's going to be like, they usually ask some pretty general questions. This is how you can kind of tell if they're interested, because if they are, they'll say, well, if I were to do this, what would blah, blah, blah be? Or how would this work? Or tell me more about this. If they aren't into asking many questions and they're like, I really don't have any, then I just go into like feedback mode. I'm like, so like when you listen to audio and like everything that we kind of talked about today, what impressed you the most about it? Like, if you ever were going to consider it, what impressed you the most, or what surprised you? And they'll tell me that. And then I'll say, you know, what, if you were thinking about this for you or someone else, I go back to the questions like, what would you really want to know? Like, I kind of am taking shields off or armor off and just kind of like, what would you want to know? If you were considering this for your daughter, like, what would you want to know? And so they'll start to ask questions at that point. And then like, I'll keep like until they don't have any more questions. And then I typically go for the fear before I ask for the scale. So I'll be like, so what would kind of freak you out about this? What would hold you back from doing something like this? What would be a fear you would have? And she's going to tell me, and I'm going to say, okay. And like, and at that point, we used to teach, I know how you feel. I felt the same way too. And this is what I found. It was called Feel, Felt, Found. And we've just kind of discovered that that is not what people want to hear. People want to, they want to know, like, they want like empathy. They want to know that you heard them. And so it's not to put thoughts in people's heads, but like, so if somebody says, you know, I'm really busy. Like I'm this, and I've got the kids, and we do this and this and this. If I said, I know how you feel, I feel the same way too. She's like, Brad, like, you don't know how busy I am, because everybody's busier than the person that they're talking to. But if I said, oh my gosh, I bet you feel like kind of drained by the time Friday gets here, right? She's like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, I can relate. But you kind of like, they're like, you want almost like for them to be like, oh, yeah, you get me. Like, you get me. And so then I would say, well, so would you be willing to like working with like a weekly plan sheet where we could actually look at the time that you do have and see if we could fit it in? Would that be something that you would be willing to do? Oh yeah, I mean, I guess I could look at that. I would talk about like the fact that Mary Kay's really taught me how to plan. I would talk about the fact that, you know, busy women, I think, run the world and they get more done. But it's about what we value at that time and what we're willing to hold on the platter. Because busy women with 10 things on their platter today will have 10 things on their platter, you know, in 2 years. It's just they pick what goes on the platter. So I'll talk a little bit about that, but then it's like, well, if it wasn't for that, what else would hold you back? And typically, you guys, like I think the thing that most people fear is she's going to tell me no, like the rejection. But really, if you don't need people, you're not worried about that anymore. You're really just figuring out if this is a good fit for her or not. And if it's not, okay. So, but they're typically not going to tell you the real objection, the real thing that's holding them back until like 4 layers deep. So I remember going to my interviews and like, please want to do it, please want to do it, please want to do it. Don't have an objection. But I listened to an audio training of Gloria's and she's like, no, bring it. Next. What's your next objection? Next. She's like, they're going to give you 4. You have to be willing to go to number 4 with people. So by the time you get through, like, well, what if it wasn't for that, what else would hold you back? And finally, the last one is usually just like, I just don't know if I could do it. Like, I'm just scared it wouldn't work out. And that's when you're like, okay, well, what could be the worst thing that could happen? blah, 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 blah. What could life be like in a year if it does work? And you get them back on the dream mode again. So you go through as many objections as you can until you get to the real one. You will know if she's not interested because she's going to tell you, listen. She'll be like, listen, lady, I'm not interested. or if she's nice, she'll be like, I mean, I'm just not interested. It's just not my thing. And that's the relationship. Well, you want to protect all relationships, but that's the relationship you want to protect. That's okay. That's okay. Like, totally, thanks for meeting me. Okay, so we're going to close on a scale. Okay, I'm going to give you a scale. And that's where I would go with her. And I'll do the scale in a minute. Or if she's like, she's given me like I've gotten to the last objection, I necessarily don't have to give her a number scale. The number scale is where you go when you need like safety and you just need an answer. Like, that's when you do the 1, you're totally not interested. 10, you totally want to get your starter kit today and you can't say 5. Where do you see yourself on that scale? But if I've got someone who we just got to the last thing, I'll just say, girl, I would love to work with you. Is there any reason why we couldn't get your starter kit ordered today? That's soft, it's sweet, it's not invasive. And she's going to say, well, yeah, let's do it. Or she's going to say, oh, I just don't know. I'm like, that's okay. So what do you think is holding you back from getting your kit today? It's a different thing than a scale, because if you've got someone who's interested and who's on that, like, you can tell they want to do it, but there's some fear, and you give them a scale, you just pretty much ended the interview and they got to pick a number. Like, you didn't like really get like, and sometimes the number scale is totally off. Like, I'll sign more 2s than I will 8s. You know, 8s are just people who, I don't know, aren't decisive enough to do it that day. 2s like just want to think about it. So the number doesn't really tell me the end story, but it ends the interview at that point. Or you can take a scale, you get them the number, and then you're like, okay, so they're a 6. Well, what's holding you back from being a 10? And then you're just going to go through some more objections again, which is totally fine. But the number scale shouldn't end the interview, but mentally, oftentimes it does. So if you're going to use it, you can't let yourself off the hook with that scale. Okay. Now, if you get someone who's like, you know, she wants to do it, she just really has to think about it. Like, even if she's like, well, I need to talk to my husband. You have to honor that. You can't be psycho chick. I mean, most people need to talk to their man about things if they're married. But I would just say, what do you think he's going to say? She already knows what he's going to say. She's married to him. She knows. So she'll say something like, well, I think he's going to be concerned about like this. I'll be like, okay, well, what do you think you'll tell him? Or do you need more info about that? You know, usually she'll be like, well, he's going to want to know how much time it's going to take, or he's going to want to know how much it costs. And so you're overcoming his objections at that point, but not like talking her into anything. Like, you're being aware that she needs to talk to him about it, but you're like, well, what do you think he's going to say? Blah, blah, blah. So I want to give you guys a chance to ask me some questions to wrap it up. I think the most important thing is when it's over, you give them the ability to sign on the spot. Like, don't chicken out. Don't be a weenie. Like, I would love to work with you today. Or I would love to work with you. Is there any reason why we couldn't like get your starter kit today? Or the number scale, and then taking it deeper. And if they're a no, building that relationship. If they're kind of in between and they need to think about it, you can do like the pink pill test, where that's like, okay, so we're going to think about it. Most women can make a decision. You know, they know what they want to do within 24 hours for sure. If you go home tonight and you don't think any more of this except that I'm crazy, then, you know, that means you should just be my customer. So there's nothing crazy about that. Or if you go home and you think about it and you start to strategize, like, I wonder what makeup she uses, or I wonder if she would have a party for me, or could I even do a party? That means you should just try it. Okay. A lot of the objections are overcome, like the training is talked about, how much money, how much time. A lot of that's talked about. That's what I do, and I shake on it. If they're not interested, I ask them to be a talent scout for me. I'm like, can you think of anyone in your life that would be into something like this? And honestly, sometimes they'll say, gosh, my niece would love this, or my sister would totally be all about this. I'm like, awesome. Well, can I call her? Do you care if I call her? And as long as you haven't been crazy chick during the interview, she's going to be like, absolutely. Yeah, I'll totally put you in touch with her. But I try to get her to book something like as a customer thingy. to take her to the next level. And I always send a handwritten thank you note, like always, 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 with some kind of goodie in it, just thanking her for her time. People remember stuff like that. It's like huge. Let's see, anything else that I forgot? But what questions do you guys have? Or fears, or?
I just want to know something simple. How do you hold that? Do you hold it up or you lay it flat?
It's typically whatever is working. Like if I'm just with one person, it's flat. It's like we're flipping, and I'll hold it like this for her or whatever. I had it on my iPad, the other night, and it was a couple ladies, and I was like, it's like, man, I just kind of, and I actually passed the iPad around, and they were like looking at the screen as I was asking them individually. But what else?
What about your cousin?
Okay, yeah. So get this, you guys. So a year later, my cousin called me, and she was like, so I want to sign up. And I'm like, sign up for what? Like, I had earned my card, become a director. And she's like, for Mary Kay. I'm like, what? I'm like, no, you don't. And she's like, yes, I do. And I'm like, why didn't you sign up a year ago? She's like, I was just watching. Wanted to see if you were serious about it. So I always tell people that, because some of the people in your life that you're close to are telling you, not interested, but really they're just watching you. There's some women out there who will not jump on a bandwagon until they know the bandwagon is actually going to stick around. You see a lot of women jumping from things to things to things these days, and nobody wants to be a part of that. And so they want to make sure that you're legit. Those are your security-minded women. And I tease her all the time, and I'm like, I think if you would have started when I asked you the first time, you'd have a pink Cadillac too. But anyway, so what other questions?
What's the personality of the person who's just kind of like this?
Probably a C.
She might answer your questions.
Maybe.
She looks
maybe a D.
Whatever.
D's can be closed. Does she answer directly, or is she vague when she answers?
I don't think she's
D's
vague.
and C's would be more, they won't roll their eyes at you typically.
So that's just rude. That's different.
Honestly, this is what I think about D's. If you can get them to the interview, they're probably going to sign up, because they have made up their mind before they got there. Or they're going to come with their arms closed, like I was with my girlfriend, and she really just had to love on me. That's the thing that you want to be who you are, but you want to match them. So for instance, like if you're an S and you're like super like, oh, and you're interviewing a D and she snaps back at you, I want you to put your D panties on and snap back. I mean, if you'd be like, well, no, I'm just kidding. But you have, like, if a D can lash it out, she can typically take it. And she prefers that. She doesn't want you to beat around the bush and talk about nonsense. She just wants to know the facts.
Give us an example.
So let's see. Oh, great. Okay, so my friend Jessica, who's totally not a D. Okay, so let's see. What part of the interview should we do? I can't look at her. Sometimes D's, like I'm a D. Sometimes D's are scared of other D's. No, I'm just kidding. These are scary. Let's see. Okay, so I'm trying to think of okay, so out of all of this stuff that you've heard so far, what has, so I would say impressed. I would not say excites, because a D would not be excited. Nothing excites her.
No.
She can be impressed. So what, out of everything that we've talked about so far, what has impressed you or even surprised you about the opportunity?
I would just have to say the discount. I think that's pretty amazing.
I think it's smart. So how long have you been using the product? Is it just with, like, you've never used it before?
For a year.
For a year? That's awesome. So you've been paying full price for a year?
No, I always have a party for my consultant.
That's really smart. That's
You,
really
right?
smart. Yeah, right?
You're my
She's
consultant.
awesome. I'm thinking, it's Maggie. Okay, so does the discount excite you? Is it a reason why you might want to do it?
No, it's just smart. It's
Okay.
like smarter, like, to do that.
I agree.
It's like more cost efficient for me.
Absolutely. Yeah, smart people typically join my team. Okay, so
Are we supposed to remember all this stuff?
you
But
just
like, this is
don't.
scary. Like, this is how I would be
Yeah.
talking to you. I would be like,
And it takes a strong woman to recruit a strong, like I can't even imagine what this conversation was like with you and Maggie.
Oh, but Maggie's
She's like,
just gonna do it to me, right? You know,
yeah,
straightforward.
that's what I mean.
Mhm.
Like, thank God your consultant was Maggie, or we might not have a Jessica.
To act like you don't even want to do it. Just at the very end to say, I'm just not really interested.
Well, if she does that, then I'm gonna say okay. Or okay,
If I tell her I
so
don't want to do it, then I don't want to do it.
yeah, okay. So let's do that. So this
Yeah.
is what I would say. So, you know, I would love to work with you. I know you're not interested in all the hoopla and all the crazy stuff,
Mhm.
but I know the discount excites you, you know, or interests you.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm all like jumping over my words because I'm thinking about it too much. So, you know, is there any reason why you wouldn't want to get your starter kit today?
Oh yeah, there's like 100 reasons I don't want to do that.
Well, tell me some.
Well, I just don't have time for that.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm not gonna have these conversations with my friends by any means, and I'm surely not gonna have a party like where I invite my friends to come.
Inside, I'm like burning, like sweat and chills. No, I'm just
Well,
kidding.
but
So-
what do you think? Are you mad? Are you like?
No,
I'm
I'm
telling
just
you,
like,
lady.
going, I'm just not going to. But that was really my mindset. I mean, it was like, I am not doing that. I'm going to become a consultant so I can get my product at 50% off, you know, because that's really, like, that's just smart. That makes sense. Why do I keep having parties for you? I mean, I love you, but,
Mhm.
yeah, like, I just want the discount. And I'm not going to do this.
Yeah, and I would
that's
have to,
where
I would have to let her, I would have to say like, okay, cool. Well, do you want to do it just for the discount?
Yeah, I totally will.
All right. Well, do you want to do it today?
Sure, why not?
All right.
That's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
But
It's
you would
legit.
have freaked me out. I would have
Yeah.
felt like you
I would
hated my
scare me
guts,
too.
that you told everybody. Oh my goodness.
I
You
know,
would
I
tell-
We're still on video.
Oh my
I'm
goodness.
sorry. It's so funny over here.
Oh my goodness.
But that's like, I mean, this is an interview that I prefer because then I
Because
know.
Yeah, you know the answer
I leave
at the end.
knowing whether or not you're on my team. Where like an S personality, 3 years later, I get like literally, I've gotten a phone call while I'm at seminar. I saw your pictures. Looks like you're like really doing really well. So maybe I don't like
Yeah.
3 years. 3 years.
Hey, bracelet for 3 years. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, and it's kind of like I think of you, Tanya, like you were like, I'm going to pray about this. And so if I would have contacted you, I could have contacted you a little bit sooner than I did. But if I would have contacted you right away, you'd have been like, girl, I told you I was praying about
Yeah,
this.
that's about the only time my D would have come out.
Yeah.
Other than
Yeah.
playing my kid.
So you have to like, you have to be like humbly brave. Like you have to be humble. You have to be aware of who she is. But you have to be brave, because if I wouldn't have been brave with 90% of my team, I wouldn't have them. And I added it up today. I have recruited over 260 women into this business.
Wow.
And your number one and when and where?
Our national area, and I don't know, I would have to say in the Epic family, I'm at least tied for number one, if I'm not number one. But I think it's just because I love people. I want to relate to people. I go after it, but I don't have time to be like crazy chick. I don't have time. Like I am not twisting arms. We're not in the twisting arm business. Like if you have, and Corey always says, if you have to twist their arm to come in, you're going to have to twist their arm to work. Like you're looking for people who have a desire, and we're not fixing the world out there. Like we can't save people. Like we can save people. Like we can save people. And you will hear people talk about like, oh my gosh, Mary Kay literally saved my life. Like it changed my life. However, like we're looking for women that we want to do life with. And so, you know, like I said, when you close it, the whole purpose of closing that is to either get her to work with you or to just take that relationship to the next step and just absolutely love on her. I do see this a lot, and I will say this is like when you're new and you're starting off and you're doing your interviews like on your own, you let people off the hook too soon. You feel uncomfortable in that place at the end, and so you feel uncomfortable, so you want to stop feeling uncomfortable, so you're like just done. But honestly, nothing happens in comfort. Nothing. You have got to get okay with feeling uncomfortable. Don't ever check your watch while you're doing the interview. Don't ever look at I do practice interviews with consultants, and they're looking at their watch because they feel uncomfortable about how long I've been talking to their girlfriend. If she's still talking to me and we're still having a conversation, it's okay. She's a woman. She's a grown-up woman. She will let you know when she's done having the conversation, or you can kind of tell. But don't check your watch. Don't look at your cell phone. Don't take a call. Like she is your priority, unless it's you know, if I tell my husband, I tell him I'm going into an interview, don't call me unless the kids are bleeding or somebody's going to the hospital. So if that phone rings and it's him, I will pick it up. But otherwise, I do not look at my phone because she is your priority. And I can't even tell you, most people can't even remember the last time they went to dinner with someone who didn't pick up their phone during the conversation. So you're giving her, she's giving you the gift of her time, so you give her the gift of your time. What else?
Ew, what if they're on their phone? Especially like you're talking and they're like scrolling and texting.
Yeah.
Like,
She's not on my list.
mhm.
It's annoying.
So you've done that before? You've
Me?
been interviewing people and they've been.
No, but I can see
Oh,
that happen.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, college girls, like if you interview like a lot of times, because they've never not had a cell phone.
Right.
They don't know how to operate. Like I went on a cruise and the college girls were all like, what do I do with my hands? Like, I mean, like, it's, you know, we're in foreign countries. Like they were literally like unable to communicate with people in real life. It was crazy.
It's true.
It was the
It is
craziest
true.
thing I've ever seen.
So, I mean, it wouldn't be totally weird for me to say, do you need to take that? Even if they're just texting. Be like, do you need to take that? You can totally take that. Oh, no, I'm fine. And then they put it down.
Huh.
But it is that generation.
And it should last, like what's an average?
It's different. If it's quick and it's like 30 minutes. Like it lasts as long as you told them it was going to last. It shouldn't last longer. But if they're having a good conversation and like they're really into the conversation, it's not really about me, I will say, oh no, what time did you have to go? Because I don't want them to think I need to leave, but I don't want them to think I'm keeping them. Like I don't want them to get done with the interview and be like, gosh, that took an hour and a half. And I'm like, well, honey, it was because you were talking. Like it wasn't me. I was conscious of your time. So, but I would say between 30 minutes and an hour is kind of the max. What other questions? Any others? Okay, so homework. All right, so homework is to actually set up to 5 interviews that maybe you didn't do last week. So we have like a grace week. And then I want you guys to think about you and how you were introduced to Mary Kay. And that's important. Okay. But I also want you to realize that there's 3 other personality styles out there that are not you. And so we always typically see things through our lens. Like, I've seen this as an opportunity to stay home with my kids. So is that what everybody's looking at this for? No, right? Chris wanted to stay at home with her cats. No, I'm just kidding. But like everybody isn't seeing this through your lens. And so you can't prejudge. So when you're picking people at your appointments, pick the people that intimidate you and pick the people who are joyful and who love life. And you will have the best team ever. Yay! All right? Okay. See ya.
Yeah, oh my gosh. I hope nothing myself out of crying.